Hello.
Oh,
How are you two?
pretty good.
Yep, just, working along. Paul, you should be able to share.
Oh, yeah, let me make sure. Yep, I can.
Cool. Hey, Erica. Hello. How are you, Christian?
Good. Been a productive week followed by a ridiculously unproductive Friday.
Oh,
But
no.
that's okay. Right.
I'm the opposite. I'm trying to make up for my poor productivity all week by smashing it all today.
Good job.
Oh, I'm trying to be productive. Just everything's like taking 12 times as long as it should. Like,
Yeah.
I thought I could leave early today. No, not gonna happen. No way.
Mm,
I guess Danny and Misa are hopefully getting back from Lakewood.
yeah. They may not show up. Those things tend to go long. Hey, Allison. Hello, Whitney. Well, shoot, I thought your presentation would be fun for them too, Paul. But let, while we're waiting for people to join. Christian, did you make sure you send your current and pending
Yeah, I've
to,
uploaded it to the folder.
okay, cool. I think the only one we need
Well, when I put it
is,
in, I think it was just Erica and I. So hopefully I put it in the right place.
I didn't put mine. I just
Oh,
sent mine by email because I failed to observe the instructions.
I put it in the folder for you,
Okay.
Tammy.
Oh, okay. Okay, so we're good. Are you good with, do you have everyone you need except for Lori?
Yes, and I've messaged her and I have yet to hear back. So I'll keep on that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a huh. Yeah. She's not really in the loop, but we need it. I wanted to talk about the next few weeks. Um, so first of all, if anyone wants to lead or have this time used for a meeting, they are welcome to do so. At this time next week, I will be on an airplane, and I believe Paul will be on the same airplane. And so it will not be possible to have this time. If people have time for an earlier meeting, we could do that on Friday. Um, and then the next two two weeks, right, Kristen? The 7th and the 14th, I won't be available. So I'm just offering those times for people, if anyone wants to use them. And then what else were we going to check, Kristen? Like if this time still works, did we check that for the fall?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. Is this okay for the fall? Yay. God, if they ever change my teaching schedule, I'm gonna be in trouble.
We should make sure that Danny and Misa can, because those are probably the two people that their schedules change more.
That is true. Yeah. So check, why don't you check? So we've done a check of all these people who are the ones who don't answer. So if you could check with them, Christian, that would be great. And then we can extend the meetings. Um, so I don't have a great plan for what to do during the weeks that you're off. We can just cancel if people want, or we can leave them on and people can use those times if they want, if they're able. What do y'all think? I'm looking for feedback actually, even though I may not have been as obvious as I should be.
I would say cancel it and we can just self-regulate our time. You know, it's summer. We deserve something.
Yeah, I think with us, at least for me, with the other tech team meeting, I can probably do most of my updates there. The only one is if people want, I think Graham will be here starting, I think, next Friday. So you might see some messages from me introducing him to the team. Who's the new grad student who will be working with me on this project.
Yeah, cool. And then next week, sorry, my calendar is very slow, but next week I'm on a short plane flight. It just happens to overlap. So if people could do like a 9 a.m. or something, I'm open to that. Or if people just want to not do it, that is also okay. So I'm working right now on canceling the 7th and the 14th, and then we'll be back on the 21st.
Know if I wrote
I
it
could
in the
do,
calendar right, but I'll be gone next Friday too. Um,
Mm.
So Tammy, I expect that we're going to be in the car going to the airport around 9.
Oh, okay. Well, never mind. Yeah, so what do y'all want to do about next week? Sorry, I'm trying to make something work at the same time.
I would say cancel it because the only time I have available is besides this is 10 to 11. Which sounds like you'll be traveling anyway.
I'm open for airport meetings. Okay, I'm just doing this stuff now. And yeah, Christian, I know you've kept the tech team, so there's already a collection point. Um, okay, cool. Thank you. Thank you all. Uh, let's see. So Paul, I guess I'm just gonna give it to you.
Okay, well, I put in the chat that I'm hoping Danny and Lisa will eventually join, but maybe they won't. So for the get to know you, I know this might put some people in a discomfort zone, but it's maybe a little bit of the fun. Who plays you in the movie of your origin story was the prompt. And so I didn't put myself, I'll go first and just to, so that nobody else has to go first since I asked the question. And my answer is Carrie Ellis, who, for those of you who are like, who is that? He was Wesley in the Dread Pirate Roberts in Princess Bride. So
Wait, you
Whitney,
gotta pick Ari Elvis? Like you can pick somebody who's not who like you just want to be.
Yeah, or I'm like, I like put a lot of thought into this, like finding someone with like character traits. So I'm like, where are the receipts, Paul? You need to back this up.
hey, so, you know, like for example, when I was in Illinois, when I was getting my whole program out of the university, firing the university and firing 2 bosses on the way, it would be like, Paul, that's not how it works. And it'd be like, you just say that because nobody ever has. Just like he said as they were going into the fire swamp.
Fair, fair.
Okay, okay. All
Um,
right. Let's hear your thoughtful. It's very, very thoughtful.
Also, I have to say thank you. I mean, you don't need to put me first, but I feel like this was in line with the comment I made last week about having two W names. So, um, after much thought and internal deliberation, I landed on Erin Brockovich, played by Julia Roberts, because I have had multiple letters of reference in my life comment on my personal tenacity, which sometimes I find a little bit annoying. I'm that's like, why does it have to be that way, sort of, you know? But that is, I think, one of the strongest traits of that character in the actual real story. And then I feel like the actress really brings that out really well. And she's, just a little bit unfiltered, a little bit rough around the edges, like maybe her tenacity takes over when she could chill a little bit. So I feel like the positives and the negatives, I can identify with all of it.
Okay, so I'm next, and I did a little bit of thinking. Um, and first I thought, well, I'd look for a redheaded actress because at one point I was quite the redhead. Um, and as a child, I thought redheads never weren't redheads, but you get old enough and it does change at times. Um, but then I decided that wasn't going well as their criteria. So I chose Rita Wilson because my origin story is going to be kind of boring, honestly. And so I thought that maybe she's pretty funny, and she's also very, I mean, she can be kind of mean, not mean, but determined, I think. And so that's why I picked her, and she could dye her hair, and I think it would look okay as a redhead.
That I went a slightly different route because I couldn't think of anything. And I went with Scooter from the Muppets. That's how I'm feeling right now. Do people know Scooter? He's like the stage manager of the Muppets running around crazy all the
Yes.
time. So that's what I was going with.
Oh, Christian, that's really funny.
Awesome.
Oh, sorry. So after putting about 2 quality minutes of thought into this while brushing my teeth this morning, I guess I went the more like ambitious, hopeful route, which would be Tina Fey, because I think she's a very good balance of success, but also very down to earth and very funny. So I hope to one day have the origin story that would be well served by Tina Fey.
Huh, oh, I like that. Okay, cool. Oh, I guess I'm next. I gave it less thought than that. I hated the question. I rejected it. I was like, I'm not answering. I'm not going to come to this meeting. Sorry, Paul. But now that I have a few models, I guess I'll try. The first thought was the rocks from Everything Everywhere All at Once. So I put the I can't upload a photo. But when they're like ha 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 ha, that was the first thing that came to my mind. It's not an origin story, it's just like first thought.
Wait, why can't you upload a photo? Just
I don't
share
know.
it. Just
Oh,
share your
I already uh
too
I
late.
tried to yeah, well, let's see if I can find it again. Um the other one was a book, not a um and not a movie, Paul, but it's Stargirl by Jerry Spinelli. She's a homeschool kid that is pretty awkward when she goes to high school, so relatable. Oh.
Okay, so it's my turn. I didn't find anyone to do I don't know who would do my origin story. So I've had like more than one person tell me that I look like Meg Tilly. So I was like, well, I guess it would have to be that, even though I don't agree. Um, it so I was like, well, it would be that. But if I could be like any actress I wanted, I'd probably pick like Scarlett Johansson. I think she's awesome. But that's a wish, not not who would play me. I don't know who would play me. Definitely somebody like Ellison said, somebody awkward and like completely completely unsuited for their environment.
There was a sequel to the book that I
Does it ever get better?
I mean, I don't know. Depends on your perspective. Stays
Okay.
strange. It stays.
I guess I'm last. I also did not think about this too much, but I never know her last name, Seyfried. is who I've always been told I look like, especially as I was younger, which I love her from Mean Girls. But if it was somebody personality wise, it'd be Jessica Day, from uh New Girl. So I just love her personality, and it's fun and bubbly and innocent
Who
at
was
times.
that?
Jessica Day from New Girl. It's played by, I'm blanking on
Like
name.
Zoe Deschanel.
Yes, Zoe Deschanel. So, anywho, yep, those are my two people, looks and then personality.
Okay. Well, thanks all for playing, even those who rejected it out of hand in the first place. I knew it would make some people kind of uncomfortable. I'm like, I'm just gonna go with it anyway.
No, no, I respect you all the more for it, but I was like, I'm just not gonna mince words on this one.
Yeah. And I would still love to know who Danny and Misa would have chosen. So we'll have to, yeah, so we'll have to pin them down so they don't just get out of it. Um, okay. So it is my turn. I'm sharing my screen now. Hopefully it's coming up. And I decided to have a little bit of fun with this. There's a chance I had too much fun with this, and I can blame that on now only having half a job, having more time to waste my time doing silly things. But hopefully this will go okay. So I'm going to be talking about a project that we've been doing in Illinois. It's called Indoor Air Quality Access through Customized Communicating Environmental Sensor Systems. We always like to try to get a nice acronym, so it's the IAQ Access Study. Um, it's like I said, it's an Illinois project, but it has some relevance here. Directed by a man giving Kyle Gilead an executive producer credit because without him, the entire project would basically cease functioning. Um, so our origin story for this project, this is a little bit of why I ended up with that question. Um, Done a lot of field projects, and I just get sick and tired of having all these different sensors. It's like for carbon monoxide, you want this thing, and for humidity, you want that thing, and for particles, you want this other thing. And they all have their own data formats. They all have their own sampling intervals. They all have their own timestamp formats and their own timestamps. Yeah, this one is doing it in 24-hour time or GMT or this format or yeah, it's trying to get them to be aligned. It's just a pain in the neck. And why can't they all get along? So I really wanted to have something that would align data. Well, that's not a script that sells, my own frustration with sensors. But, I still wanted to do it. So then I realized that there's another thing that plays into this, which is, you know, a lot of people feel like, we've got all these IAQ monitors, but people don't use them. It's not that people don't use technology. People have cell phones, people have all kinds of things, but they don't tend to use IAQ monitors. But the manufacturers and a lot of IAQ researchers and all that say, well, people need the information. We need to give them the data, and then they'll be able to do things. But is that really the most important thing? Some of you have seen this a little bit before. If you have an IAQ monitor that gives you one of these signals, what do you do with it? Okay, you used to have a green happy face. Now it's gone to a red frowny face. What do you do with that? Well, we could give them the actual numbers, but still, what do you do with that? You've been told you have a problem. People are sick and tired of being told they have problems. They had enough problems. What they really want is solutions. So guidance, in my mind, needs to be more weighted than information. And so just telling them, hey, you've got an issue, that's information. But guidance of what to do about it that might actually be able to prevent problems, that seems more interesting. That's a script that sells. So HUD liked that story. They didn't like so much These things should talk to each other better because I want easier data analysis. They like this idea that we could develop something that would make it so that people could really um, have solutions. So the goal of the project was to deploy multiple sensors. It was critical there be multiple sensors, even with there being more and more of these multi-contaminant monitors, multiple sensors that we would internally manage the data, bring the data together. And then that's the thing that I really wanted. But then the thing that is part of the script that sells is to push out real-time alerts, approximately real-time alerts when indoor air quality is poor. And so now we're getting a little bit towards some of what Sapphires is about, is actually trying to do something when conditions change. Our suggestions in those alerts are customized based on our own assessment. So if we see when we're deploying the instruments that they have a portable air cleaner, we'll make use of that in the alerts. If they don't, we won't. So we do have a customized set of alerts. And one of the things, just as a slight aside, I have no interest in becoming a product manufacturer. What I'm hoping is that we show that this is something that has merit and has legs, and that manufacturers would see this as a business model they might want to pursue, as opposed to the business models they are currently pursuing, which leads to very few of these sorts of devices being installed in people's homes. Now, in theory, what we would love to do is as soon as a contaminant starts to rise, like somebody starts cooking, NO2 starts going up, particles start going up, humidity starts going up, CO starts going up, CO2 starts going up, everything is going up, send the notification with the hope that that allows them to say, oh, do something before the asthma trigger hits the person who is susceptible to the asthma triggers, who is susceptible to having asthma attacks. Let's prevent it from happening. So that's the theory. Reality bites. Sensors, they have anomalies. And occasionally, we've seen this. I think any of us who have worked with these monitors have seen, occasionally there's a number that's just weird. And it isn't relevant to what's really going on. We don't want to alert on a blip. We don't want to have there be some anomalous spike where all of a sudden the particle reading is 800 micrograms per cubic meter, and then the next reading is back down to 2, and be telling them to do all kinds of things. We need to make sure it's a real signal. And of course, sensors don't respond immediately. It may be that they give you a piece of information every minute or every 2 minutes or something like that. Queries don't happen immediately, and processing doesn't happen immediately. So let me go back to this. So that was one of the issues, is that we might want to respond immediately, but by the time we're sure we have a signal, and then it's a signal that warrants an alert, it's not immediate anymore. So it's kind of how short of a time period can we make it be with some level of confidence. There are other things we had to think about. How do people get alerts? We were not going to build an app. We did not have the sufficient funding to build an app. Who gets the alerts? So you've got a household. Is everybody getting the alerts? Is one person getting the alert? Who's getting the alerts? How many alerts per day is okay? If somebody is smoking, they might get 50 alerts a day. Is that a level that's allowable? How much information do we provide? Look, we have a lot of knowledge. We can give them tons of information, but how much do we actually provide? At some point, it becomes information overflow. And how do we make it understandable to everybody? Those are all, and then what do we do if the outdoor air is bad? If we see the spike happening in particles, but it's wildfires outside, what do we do? So we did need feedback. We went to try to answer some of these questions. We had a community representative, many of you know, Darnell, and like I asked him, do we exclude smokers? He said, no, include smokers. And if they get so sick and tired of getting these alerts, if they start smoking outside, we call that a win. Um, we had an instructional designer who also some of you know, Bethany, who reviewed all of our first round of alerts and came back and said the reading level was too high and gave us some concrete suggestions of how to improve it and reorder things. You know, which thing do you say first? Which thing do you say second to get their attention and make them actually try to pay attention? In the end, I really wanted to do it on rate of change. Like if it increases by a factor of 3 in within 5 minutes, then we're going to send an alert because that would suggest kind of this leading edge of something. But by the time we were really confident that we had that kind of a rise, we were getting to the point where we were pretty much getting to levels where we were at thresholds of interest instead. Um, so then we ended up choosing reasonable thresholds. We had yellow and red alerts for those thresholds. Yellow is, hey, it's starting to get to a level that you might be concerned about, and here's some suggested actions. If it kept going up and hit the threshold for the red alert, we would urge action, be a much stronger message, sometimes expanded action. So that could be like at the yellow, we would say, we suggest you turn on your bathroom fan in your first floor bathroom. At the red, we might say, also open windows and turn on your second story bathroom fans as well. So we might have some expanded actions. We would have an initial alert based on just a short time, but it wouldn't, so like if it gets above a threshold in 5 minutes or 10 minutes that we send them an alert, we don't want to send them an alert every 10 minutes if it stays high. So it'd be like, okay, we've given you an alert. And it would be like 2 hours later, hey, it's still high. If it hasn't gotten resolved one way or another, that resolution might not be any action that they took. It might just be that it stopped being high, or it was from cooking and they stopped cooking and it just decayed. So it doesn't have to be anything that they did in response to what we said, but if it stays high, we give them alerts on a much longer time frame just as reminders. And in terms of what if the outdoor air is bad, specifically for PM, if the outdoor air was above, say, 50 micrograms per cubic meter, then things that we normally would have said to do to get rid of indoor particles, we say don't do. Because if you increase the ventilation, you may end up bringing in more particles than you'd be getting rid of. So we did take that consideration for if the outdoor air is bad. In terms of who we communicate to and how we communicate, we decided it needs to go to one person. The household gets to choose who that person is, one adult. And then they could choose email or text. At any individual household, we can do either email or text. We've got a mix of texts and emails across the sample, but within a household, they have to choose one. Obviously, email, if they're not looking at their email, the alert is even less real time than text would be, but we leave it up to them. That was one of the things that we thought was very important in terms of the community engagement for us to let them decide how they wanted information as opposed to us telling them how they had to get the information. So our system architecture. It's a bit of a mess. Kyle would do a much better job of explaining it, but basically we've got multiple sensors that have local hubs, and then we've got our Wi-Fi and cloud API and remote hub. It all brings it into a system where the individual data streams are put together by one. We got Elixir, we've got Prometheus, we've got Grafana. Grafana is really about what things look like and data availability. Elixir is, I believe, really about blending the data, managing the data, and Prometheus is more about the alerts. So we'd have the data managed, we'd have the decisions being made of whether we needed to send alerts and what kind of alerts, and then we would have some graphics. I'll have a couple of slides here in a moment that bring most of these up a little bit more, but there's a lot of pieces to actually take data from multiple sensors and push out something meaningful. And I'd say it was giving Kyle gray hair, but he's bald. But he certainly expresses himself in a way that if he had hair, he would be going very gray over this project. He's also a hacker, so he actually really loves it, even though it also stresses him out. So this is the kind of graphical dashboard that we have and that residents can go take a look. If they are interested, they can go into the there's a website that they can go to. It's not an app. There's a website they can go to and they can see some historical data. So we've got, temperature going up and down because of heating and cooling. Here we see the changes in CO2. This one here, PM 2.5, these vertical dashed lines, they're either yellow or red. Those are our alerts. Either that's when a yellow or a red alert was sent based on the changes that we are seeing so this is the green is the living room particle level. Yellow is outdoors. And you can see it was going up. It didn't quite get to the point where we would not give recommendations through an alert for indoors. But anytime we see a jump in the indoor living room particle level, we're getting an alert sent. This is the kind of information we have for data and alerts. This is from the website they can go to over here on the left, where we've got it's color coded along that's consistent with the alerts. And then it's also giving numbers. Obviously, the nitrogen dioxide number is not real because it's negative. There is certainly some fluctuation, but when it's negative for nitrogen dioxide, it means we don't have, we're essentially treating that as zero. This is kind of a list of the alerts sent to a particular home. We've got relative humidity, nitrogen dioxide, particulate matter, and other nitrogen dioxide. And we say, what the contaminant is it high, or it has been high, or it's very high. This is, if you go into it a little bit more, you get this kind of level. It starts up where in the house, what the contaminant is, and its nature right now. It's in this case high with a number. Gives a recommendation that's based on what we saw in the house. Then there's also some information so that they have some awareness of what might be causing it. And one of the things we're hoping is that even when the systems are removed, people will have learned something about what causes elevated contaminant levels, and they will continue to implement some behavior change to address these things. So the way we do the project to be able to try to understand whether people are actually making changes, this is actually going to be a little bit similar to how we're doing sapphires. Assess the home, install equipment. Once we've installed our equipment, we leave it running without the alerts actually active. We can see when an alert would have been triggered, but it doesn't actually get sent to them for about a month. We want to see what their behavior leads to without being told anything. Then after that month, there's an education piece where we tell people how the system works, what the contaminants can do for their health, why they should pay attention to the alerts. And then we turn the alerts on, continue running for a month. Tammy, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, buttons. Yeah, so in our project, there's some capability of the interface to know when it's being looked at. Do you guys have anything like that?
We do not. That's something we would love. We thought about having there be something, tap that you've looked at the alert. You do something to indicate it. And that was a step too far for us within what we were doing. It was definitely identified as a really nice to have that we just couldn't quite get to. Yeah, and then so what we want to do is see whether there's a change in problems pre to post. That can be number of spikes, it can be magnitude of spikes. It can be number of, how much time above a certain level, pre versus post. There's a number of different ways to look at it. We're still collecting data. We're actually relatively early, even though the project is nominally almost over. Um, we're still kind of in the first half of the houses we want to get to. Now we have had some wins. There was one where the resident was wondering why they kept getting these alerts about nitrogen dioxide. It was really confusing to them because they didn't think they were doing anything that would put nitrogen dioxide into their home. Well, what we traced it to was they have a gas dryer and the dryer vent was broken. And so all of the dryer exhaust, including the gas, was coming back into the house. So we traced it to that. And of course, one of the first things they then did was get the dryer vent fixed. So right, that's like one house that already was a huge win because that was not a good situation. We have houses where there are people in the basement, might be kids, might be guests, who are using various products that the people, the house heads of household didn't know about. Got a little question mark next to that because whether that's a win or not depends on whether you're the people upstairs or the people downstairs. The people downstairs might have considered that to be very far, very, very far from a win. Because it was, like, there's been vaping. A lot of times there's been VOCs that have been the issue. They're vaping. One household had some guests who were using very, very strong VOC personal care products every morning. And we've also had a number of residents report that they find the feedback valuable, and they have been responding to it. Where it's not always evident in the data that we're looking at, but what we're hoping is that over the course of the sample, we will see some amount of change. And we know that there are some residents that aren't doing anything about it, but we have gotten some positive feedback that people are liking that they are being given guidance and solutions, not just told that they have problems, and they are implementing some amount of behavior change. Now, challenges, power outages and unplugging, that can lead to some, obviously data loss, and it's not always clear what to do with that. Low cost sensor uncertainty. I showed that negative 23 ppb and NO2. So, sometimes the low cost sensor uncertainty or interference. We've got some evidence that in some homes, like NO2 will respond. There will be a change in the NO2 signal that we see based on whether the furnace is running or not, or air conditioner. We don't think that's real. We think it's some kind of interference. We don't really understand. But when those kinds of numbers, when that uncertainty would throw you on the other side of like the yellow threshold, we don't want to be triggering alerts. So we have had to shut off certain alerts because of that sort of thing. And we also have an issue that one of the devices we're using for CO2, it will do an auto calibration that sometimes resets the baseline by 1,000, and that can be challenging to deal with as well. So there's definitely some issues with using these low cost sensors. They're better than they used to be, but there can still be challenges. There's a tremendous amount of data management. I think Kyle will be looking forward to like 3 years of comp time when the project is over, because of how much time he has put in. And then there's also some amount of expectation. We had one resident who they had a gas leak, and the utility came out and found that they had a gas leak and shut things off. And she was really irritated with our system because it didn't even find, here we're putting in this thing for indoor air quality, it didn't even find this gas leak. Well, it isn't measuring methane. It's not one of the things it's measuring, but that was a thing that we didn't anticipate. But while we did find broken dryer vent, we didn't find the gas leak. So we find some things, we don't find other things. So that's my introduction of this project. I think it does have some relevance to and analogies to sapphires. I hope the movie and other references that I had as visuals was not too distracting. Like I said, it was kind of fun. I've got more time now. Any questions? Should I stop sharing? I tend to leave these things up in case we want to go back to look at something, but I don't know if we need to look at a bunch of llamas.
Yeah, I think you can take it down and put it back if you need it.
Okay.
Um, Although I have to admit I wasn't done reading about all the llamas. Yeah, so it is a lot like sapphires in some way. So at least that component of like what does it do? And I take it you haven't compared the before after yet.
Not yet. We only have like maybe a dozen houses where we have the full amount of data completely collected.
Well, it's
Um,
more than we have.
yeah, I think we're just going into house 32 and 33. And with there being like a month before and a month after, nominally the project ends at the end of November and we want to get to 80 houses and we can handle 20 houses at a time. We're not on a track to get to 80, but we might get close to 60.
Your concerns are all very familiar to me.
Could you elaborate on how you said you got reactions from the group, from the people, or that they liked it, that kind of thing. Can you tell me more about, or tell us more about how you got those? Was that just more um, anecdotal? Was it that you just talked to them afterwards and had a questionnaire or something like that?
Yeah, so that's a good question. And one thing I didn't say was we do have a survey, but it's a health survey. It's
Okay.
not and so, we are entering data into RedCap and all of that. So we're doing pre and post health surveys for people. Um, but in terms of their impressions of the system and what they like and don't like, that's just anecdotal and offered through conversation.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. It might be something we should have done, but it is not something we did.
Yeah, no, I mean, if you had more money and more time and a lot of things, you could have built out that piece more strongly. But
Yeah.
I think that you've got some, I mean, from what you do have, I mean, it's interesting. And the other thing I'd say is that um, based on some work of some folks in my department that have been looking at oh, we haven't outdoor workers and that idea you have of the we can't just and we know this too, like we can't just tell you the information, we need to tell you what to do with it, and the specificity of that and things. They've developed some stuff for the city that was like a almost like a decision tree for the outdoor workers. When it did X and Y, here's what you should do, and
Mhm.
they got some good response on it. It's a little clunky, but it is toward that, like not just, oh, your air's bad, change something, but more specific. And that
Yeah.
typically, you're right, will help people to go, oh, okay, I can do that. And I like the fact that you said that, we looked at what's in the house so we could tailor it to what they had. And that's great.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I mean, if this was something that was being mass marketed by IQ Air or TSI or some company that makes indoor air quality monitors, I wouldn't expect it to be customized that way, but it might be something where because they would presumably have a lot bigger budget, development budget, they would have some kind of AI or machine learning to try to understand, learn with time, kind of like a Nest thermostat does, learn over time what sorts of things are happening, be able to
Yeah.
eventually get to that kind of guidance.
Yeah, or that you could tell it a little bit or something as you set it up, just like you're talking about. I think that, yeah, that's definitely doable. The other question I had was, do you have any kind of an idea of the range of number of alerts? Like, were there houses that just got a whole ton of alerts and then some that got very few, or was it uh, fairly just even like in the middle more?
No, it's all over the place. I mean, we have houses. I think we have one house that was getting over 30 alerts a day. And then, more common is going to be in like 5 to 10, and with a few being less than five. And there's some pretty clean houses that just never really seem to have very much. Um, when it's something like 30, that tends to be places where we're pretty sure people are smoking.
Oh,
And
yeah, yeah.
we considered excluding smoking houses, but most studies exclude smoking houses. And we also recognize that smoking is just one contaminant, and we didn't want to have it be that if you smoke, you don't get benefits of, say, information about your cooking.
Mhm.
So let's acknowledge that smokers might get a ton of alerts. And that was again with the feedback of our community partners. We wanted to say, if we do this, do you think that is acceptable in your community? And he said, yes, we should do that.
I actually like that you did that too, because I think it, I mean, I think it's great. I think it's great you asked them and like, do you think this will be acceptable and so on? Definitely. But I do think that um, helping someone who does something indoors that maybe they've been told a lot, you really should do this outdoors. And then they start seeing more of that data. And that may be that there's other people in the house that have been trying to get the person to change. And now they've got, no, it's like when I tried to convince my dad, he snored really loud, and I finally recorded it and played it back. And he was like, okay, I do, you know? But it wasn't till then really that he believed me, I don't think. Um, and so I think that, that outside verification, and it's not just me thinking you're doing this, see this machine,
Yeah,
that kind of thing can be harder for them to counter argue.
yeah, yeah. One thing I think we have in Sapphires going for us that we didn't have and don't have in this project is I think the timeline that we have from when there's an initial indicator of something happening and when we want to take action is a good bit longer with Sapphires. We don't have the same thing of if we have one point that all of a sudden shoots up to 800, is that real or not? So
Yeah, I think that background question, this has been thought about a lot. I was curious, Paul, this is like I feel like this is really similar to the home health box study. Um, but the timing of the feedback was different, right? Like Ellison's group gave people feedback after a monitoring period, and this is immediate feedback. And I, I don't know if you'll learn anything from comparing those two studies when they're done, but I think it could be interesting. Like, do people see a block of measurement as like authoritative and they'll respond to that as like a major piece, or do they respond more to a push like, oh, I've got so many alerts, I better check on this.
yeah, yeah. Ellison and I have talked about the connection between the two projects in the past, and we actually have thought, and Ellison's been probably at least 2 years since we've talked about this, but like if the home health box was sent out and you get it back and you see the contaminants that are elevated, that could inform what would get deployed with continuous sensors. So the home health box could actually help to inform the whole system that we're developing, and they end up being kind of a tag team
Hmm.
approach to end up with overall better outcomes where we could decide, okay, what devices do we want to send and what indicators do we have that we could already pre-program as those customized alerts.
Yeah, because that one occupant's response, like, you didn't catch my gas leak. Yeah, I understand for us, there's a huge array of pollutants. You're not going to get all of them. You have to decide what you want to focus on. But to that person, it's like, I had an expert in my house. right? And they didn't tell me this major thing.
Yeah.
And so that question of it's not like the study worked as designed, right? But the question is, what would a reasonable participant expect? And when something slips through the cracks simply because of how design works, how does that play back into the ecosystem of expectation?
Yeah. And, we, like when we do the education piece, we talk about the different contaminants that it does measure, but your layperson is not going to immediately translate that into all the things that it doesn't measure. And we
Mm,
don't talk about what it doesn't measure.
mm, mm. What this is not for.
Yeah. And that was a clear example of where that gap made somebody irritated.
And that's not the
Oh,
kind of thing that would be retained, I think. I wouldn't remember.
I was gonna say, I wanted to add, we told everyone in our study that we're not measuring carbon monoxide because that's something where you need a immediate response if things are high, and no one remembered that.
Mm,
Okay.
And multiple
Interesting.
times we were, informally, not overly critiqued, but people were like, well, I know that CO is bad. Why aren't you measuring CO? And like it's in our consent documents and it's in our like
mhm.
onboard. It's like it's everywhere. It's just it's nowhere when they are thinking about it, and it's
Yeah.
everywhere when they don't care.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, the education, we have kind of a handout, a leave behind that we've tried to make be accessible to a layperson. Um, and then the person who goes out really spends time going through it with them and showing them how the system works and making sure they understand that. Um, not just saying your education is we're leaving this with you. We do spend time going through it. But again, that doesn't mean that they retain it. It doesn't mean that they recognize what it doesn't do. So there's still a lot of gaps.
Did you track at all how much they might have looked at that historical data? Just thinking about their kind of level of engagement with the stuff you're giving them. Um,
We haven't yet. I'm
okay.
not sure whether we can. I'd have to ask Kyle whether we are able, because they are having to go to a website, do we have a way to track how much time people spend on the website? I am not aware of us checking into that
Okay.
at this
Yeah,
point.
sometimes we'll, and again, if you had more on that end, you might, sometimes we'll look at, well, they have a house like this. Did they do this? Kind of further engagement, with the data and some stuff associated with that, just to see, like what's piquing their interest, where they're noticing stuff, or if they get an alert, then do they pay more attention to that historic data? It's nice that you provided it, though. I thought that was a nice addition for those who did want to find out more.
Mhm. Yeah, and one of the things we really had to think about is what information do we always give them, and what information do we make where if you're interested, you have to click through to get it. And so we didn't flood them, but we still made things available. And so a lot of decisions that it was easy for me to say, hey, I want to do this project. And then it's other people like Kyle are saying, well, how are you going to do that? What about this? And what about this? And this and this and this and this and this? Well, yeah, I guess we need to answer those questions, don't we?
I was thinking a similar way about the contractor, the assessor training package that we've been working on. Seemed like a great idea. And oh my God, it's taken so much time because I thought, well, we have all this information. All I have to do is put it in a platform and and exactly what you say, like at that level, if you give them too much, they won't remember any of it. That just that whole thought process and curating what to place in front of somebody so that some of it might stick has just been so much more time consuming than I anticipated.
Yeah, And Bethany is the one who really helped us get, what order do we put things in those alerts to try to make it be something that that they're willing and able to absorb.
That may be one of the differences I think that's interesting between Ellison's home health box and this study, because Ellison and in the home health box study, you're providing more of that scaffolding when you give them that report and some of those things for them to gather, to get it, and they're getting it in at once. And Paul, in your study, it's not quite the same as far as the scaffolding to help them to figure out, because if it's stuff people haven't heard about before, um, the stuff we understand about, how people start to process information and hold on to it and create ways to retrieve it when they need to and stuff. If it's stuff they don't know anything about, if you lay the framework for them and you organize it in a way that's useful, and that they can get, then that makes all the difference. That can be really useful. It's not like it's all the difference, but it's really useful. And
Yeah,
I think, Ellison, that's one of the, I mean, between these two, it's this is very cool, um, sides of things. The immediate alerts, the bigger questions, or not the bigger questions, but the like, here's everything in your house. Now think about it as a whole object. Whereas in Paul, when it's alerts, and this is normal, like when you think about your house, if I have an alert going off somewhere, I'm just thinking about that problem and that's it. But if I'm getting this report about my whole house on these things, then I'm going to think about it as more like as an organism or as a package, and make and make decisions based on that. And so they have different uses and different and they fill different needs. So it's both very, very neat. I mean, for me, this is fun. Sorry.
I'm curious, just people who haven't said much, but definitely work in related fields. So wanted to leave time open, a tiny bit of time for people to share thoughts. Okay, well, thank you for presenting this. I think it's kind of useful. It's easy to feel when we're in Sapphires, like we're um the or like we have to figure it all out, or we have to make decisions that are lasting. I just saw an article in Bloomberg today, like everybody wants to predict wildfire smoke. It's like, okay, we have a lot of people to learn from, so it's good. Yeah, good to bring the stuff across. Thank you.
yeah. Should I send out the presentation and along with a quiz for all of the movie and character and TV show references?
You may not, but you can send the slides to Kristen so they can be uploaded in our archive.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.